Time now to take another look at the morning papers. Here with me reviewing them today are the journalist and author Janelle Aldred and the editor of Spiked, Tom Slater. So welcome back to both of you. And we dealt with a number of the front pages in the last hour. So this time we're going to go inside the papers. And Tom, you want to kick us off with an article in the Daily Mail. The headline is "Outrage as Sturgeon brands gender law critics homophobic."
Yeah, this is really shameful, desperate stuff from Nicola Sturgeon, who has branded anyone who's criticised a very controversial in Scotland gender bill, which has been held up by the Westminster Parliament. Any critics of those apparently are transphobic, they're misogynistic, they're homophobic, possibly some of them even racist. These are comments that she made on a podcast recently. And it's particularly because this is in the context of a week in which her critics were essentially proven right, in my view. This horrendous case of Isla Bryson, this convicted double rapist, who quite conveniently decided he was trans halfway through his trial, was being held in a women's prison and was only actually removed from that prison because of the weight of public pressure at the end of last week. You're seeing Nicola Sturgeon now lash out at those critics who have proven right that even in the context of the gender laws we already have, there is still a very severe threat to women's safety and women's spaces by gender self-identity and so on. And to again accuse critics who have raised reasonable concerns about all these issues of just all of these different isms, I think is completely wrong-headed. And also because of the fact that anyone who's followed this discussion over recent years, and a very embittered discussion it has become in many respects, if we're seeing any kind of homophobia, it's from the other side of this discussion, who wants to say that same-sex attraction isn't really a thing. Or if we want to talk about misogyny, how about all the activists who bombard people like J.K. Rowling with rape and death threats whenever she raises a peep to discuss the issues in this particular debate? So I think these comments are desperate. I think they're going to be counterproductive. And I think it just shows how lost on this particular issue Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP are, in my view.
Well, yeah, and Tom, you feel very strongly about it in one regard. And as you know, there will be people who feel equally strongly on the other side of it. And this after the UK government did block, didn't they, Scotland's changes to its gender laws, making it easier for people of a younger age to get to assume another gender without a medical diagnosis. Janelle, do you have a view on this? Because it is a very fraught debate, isn't it?
It's such a fraught debate, and I think when we throw around language like homophobic and transphobic, and because someone doesn't agree with us, I think then it becomes even more toxic. You know, look, this is a situation where rights are colliding, where someone's right to choose and change their gender, and someone's right to be in a space where, you know, they want to feel safe and protected, and all of these things meshing in together. We know that every situation won't be like the one in Scotland, but that situation in Scotland does show that this is the very extreme end of where this can go. So we have to have a sensible debate about this. But when we start throwing slurs into the mix, especially MPs and ministers who are lawmakers, then I think it doesn't go anywhere fast. And we need everyone to kind of have a calm and rational debate about the facts so that we can get somewhere different.
Okay, and you wanted to take us to the Telegraph, Janelle, and this is the Chancellor yesterday saying that HS2 would run straight into central London. There was a report in The Sun yesterday that suggested it might stop at a hub in the suburbs to the west of London. So what exactly did Jeremy Hunt say here?
He's saying it definitely is going all the way into Euston. You know, I'm young enough to remember at the very start of my journalism career, well over a decade ago, when HS2 was still part of everyone's imagination, and it's still part of our imaginations because we've yet to see it come to life. But what they're saying is they don't want to go over the £40 billion budget. But what this does look like on the other end is it might not go into central Birmingham as promised. So although it definitely will be going into London, will it reach the northern cities, which was the whole point of HS2, was to bring a faster, quicker connection into central London, and maybe that's the part that won't be happening even if it does go into Euston. So I think with HS2 they really need to decide whether or not it is going to be what it will be, and perhaps a further budget overspend, which obviously is not ideal, but equally if it's not going to serve the north as well, I kind of think what's the point?
Okay, and let's move on to another story actually inside the Telegraph, Tom, and this was a huge fire at a church in London.
Yeah, it's really horrible scenes there. So it's a 175-year-old church, it's St Mark's Church in Hamilton Terrace in St John's Wood. a fire ripped through it on Thursday night, not only causing huge damage to the building itself, but also within it there are a lot of artefacts and memorials, mosaics by Florentine artists, foundation stone laid by Prince Leopold in 1877. So a real piece of history here in London. Thankfully, no one was injured, but unfortunately, despite 80 firefighters trying to save the building and much of the sort of treasures inside of it, so much damage was done on Thursday evening. So a real shame there.
Yeah, real shame. The building described as being destroyed as a result of that fire. Very sad. Janelle, take us to the Mail and prospect of a teacher strike.
Yes, the Mail is saying that teachers striking is going to cause some 4.5 million children to lose a day's learning, and laying the blame of disruption of education at those teachers' feet. I think this is slightly misleading, and also, I know that they will affect that many students, but it's a day's strike, and we do know the impact of COVID and the impact on learning, but I think teaching has to pay. We have to be able to pay teachers well if we want to attract more teachers, which is desperately needed. It's a very, very tough job. They are going to have to talk to them about pay to make it attractive, not just for the people they don't want to leave right now, but for future people who might be attracted to the vocation, but think, can't do it if it can't actually make ends meet.
Okay, and that's a conversation that's being had about in lots of different industries at the moment, isn't it, as we know. Janelle and Tom, thank you very much indeed for the moment. We'll see you again for another go in an hour's time. Thanks very much indeed. Do stay with us. Coming up next here on Sky News Breakfast, we've got all the top stories for you, including body cam footage capturing the brutal beating of Tyree Nichols by 5 Memphis police officers.